Alright, if I understand correctly, y'all should be able to hear me right now. It's me, Woat, and Nitz is here in the booth with me, and it is Final Fantasy Randomizer. Kinda late-ish? It's past prime time.
Yeah, I guess it's the evening show here. Swiss stage round 3 matchup between Sforzand0, Fuchsiafantasy. Two gentlemen that are at this point 2-0, and amongst we're in the yellow jerseys if it was the Tour de France. They're in the lead. And they're going to be trying to make it to 3-0 tonight and virtually assuring themselves a spot in the knockout stages following the Swiss round. So this is going to be as good as it gets as far as the quality of the runners is concerned, and I'm looking forward to this race big time.
Oh yeah, no, this is one of those things when I saw it was on the docket for the evening and there was an open commentary slot, it was like, I gotta get in on this. Let's see. It looks like we've got Forced Red Mage, if I'm reading things right.
I'm seeing Forced Red Mage, and then it looks like after that, opinions vary wildly on what to do. So Fuchsia's picked himself up a Thief and a Fighter and a Black Mage, and on the right-hand side, Sforzand0's got himself a Fighter, a White Mage, and a Black Mage. So there's it's the Thief versus the White Mage that's going to be the difference between the two parties tonight.
Yeah, and that is, it's always interesting to me when a runner opts to go without a White Mage, and that may just speak to my personal comfort level. Like, I like having that assurance that as long as the life spells didn't get shuffled to 7 and 8, I'm going to at least have access to a few of those for TOFR.
Yeah, it's a very typical you like one way or the other scenario, where if you're right and life is shuffled into a spot that's Red Wizard only. We've got speedrunner Allegra on backup commentary tonight. Allegra's a good name for a speedrunner, so hopefully she chimes in a little bit to keep me honest. Yeah, the next generation, right? Learning from a very young age. So yeah, the Red Mage is not necessarily going to be able to learn Life 2, but if they can, then all of a sudden your White Mage's role becomes really marginalized, and they're just a second Life 2 caster or a second Fate caster. So it's a risky play, and we'll see how it works out. And we are underway. So first thing we've got here on the left is White Magic. We had Life, and it's learnable by both classes. So all of a sudden, the Red Mage choice is looking good. You're going to have access to Life.
Mm-hmm. And we got Quake over on the Black Magic side, which, as far as AoE instant death spells go, not the worst you can have. It's got a pretty decent accuracy if memory serves, and not a lot of things are going to be able to just slough it off.
Yeah, it's got a decent enough accuracy. The thing that goes against Quake is that it's Earth Elemental, so it doesn't work on anything that flies or anything that swims, but it does tend to work on undead. So it's helpful at the beginning for sure, but you're going to hope for something better very soon.
Yeah, so this is one of those cases where you're probably hoping to see a bridge and not a canoe right off the bat.
And speaking of right off the bat, Sforzand0 kicks in the door of Temple of Fiends, and he's already got himself a gold bracelet and a light axe, so a lot of awesome gear right off the start.
Oh yeah, now here's hoping the Temple of Fiends doesn't proceed to kick him in return. Because we've seen some Temple of Fiends that have not been very pleasant for our runners so far this tournament. Although, with that gold bracelet, there's a pretty good chance that his fighter can probably handle anything the Temple of Fiends can whip out.
And the good news is, fighter or no, the light axe can be used to cast Harm 2, which is definitely going to take care of any of these undead packs at the start of this game. So that's a great item no matter what. It should be a bit of an equalizer against all the undead fights, but yeah, it's a fine weapon for a fighter to equip at this point too.
And it looks like everyone is just going to wait except the fighter and the Black Mage, and Garland goes down to an earthquake.
Yeah, I mean, he was just about ready to knock them all down, and then he fell into a giant chasm in the earth and disappears. And right off the bat, we've got an early floater, but no canoe. So we're still going to have to do a little bit of hunting to get our airship.
So that probably means we're going to see Bridge over at Dwarves, and then BK is going to have our canoe.
Yeah, he'd better, right? Or we're not going very far. He could have the ship, and then we could go on a bigger canoe hunt as well. So it's not etched in granite yet, but it's looking like when the floater turns up early, that's what every runner likes to see, because it can be a bit of a hunt.
Yeah. You know, it does kind of dash our hopes for a ship TNT seed unless things get really screwed with that canoe position.
Well, we can still hope. So we had reasonably priced tents as well, and cheap pures in the Corneria item shop, so everything's shaping up pretty well at the start here.
Yeah, Fuchsia went ahead and picked up a couple of levels and is just now getting to Garland, but is in a much more comfortable position in terms of being able to deal with anything the Temple of Fiends can throw at him.
Well, there's a bridge in Dwarves to make things interesting.
And a power gauntlet. So, that's something that I'm sure both runners are going to be very glad to bump into right off the bat.
Sforzand is going to take his time and trigger the bridge scene here, crossing the canal. This is vanilla behavior, but it was impossible to get there in the vanilla game without crossing the bridge first, so you would never see it. But the game was programmed to show you that scene should you have stepped on the canal, and Sforzand does the little Easter egg there for our enjoyment.
That or he forgot he didn't have the canoe.
And then he reset back, loaded it to save himself some time, forgetting, of course, that that's going to trigger the canoe scene again, so he gets to see it twice.
Yeah, it's one of those things. The open progression flag really does open up a lot of things, as the name would imply. You know, the ability to kind of circumnavigate the inner sea without the ship just makes the opening really interesting compared to our last tournament.
Yeah, it's definitely like a less, direct quest. It's sort of open-ended in the sense that there's often multiple places you can go that have multiple interesting or incentivized locations to explore. So it's not a question of just leveling up and defeating the next boss. It's actually a bit of an adventure, and that has proven to be a big hit, and it's really fun to see that aspect of the game really take off where it never could have before.
Yeah, and I think we finally saw some direct damage AoE at second level Black Magic. I unfortunately didn't quite catch what was at second level White Magic, but didn't look like Sforzand0 picked up anything yet, so we'll probably get a second chance to take a look at that.
Yeah, Quake might not work that well on sea creatures, but pirates on land, yeah, not sea creatures apparently, so they're swallowed up, and Sforzand0 defeats Bicky and his motley crew very quickly, and he'll be underway now with the canoe under his belt. We'll see, he's probably going to head straight for that floater, but along the way, what adventures lie in store with Fire 3 and Ice 3 at level 2. Hopefully he's got what he needs to defeat them.
But what if the real adventure was the friends we made along the way? Or that opal bracelet and dragon armor at Matoya, holy cow.
Just a couple of trinkets that blind lady was keeping in those chests. She had no idea what they were worth, and she's just like, oh, that old thing? That's garbage. It's beautiful glistening armor and diamonds, but I mean, if you're blind, how can you possibly appraise them? So you should be happy to find that, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm one of those runners who really likes seeing dragon armor, just because it takes a lot of the direct damage down a peg when it comes to my fighter. And that is a nice little run there on Sforzand0's side down the river.
Those annoying Caribes, they just about impossible to kill, it seems, and they always show up in packs. Sforzand0 gets away from those, and he is just about in floater country, the Ryukon Desert.
Yeah, and we have someone in chat reminiscing about watching some of the flags from some of the seeds from our last tournament, where pirates were the reason that we now have the unsafe pirate flag.
Just in time for this tournament, so no nasty scripts on the pirates, so no game-breaking delays there, which, well, it makes them perhaps a tad less interesting, certainly makes the rest of the runs more interesting, so it's a price you gotta pay. Now Sforzand0 is gonna tap on the shoulder of our good friend the Canoe Sage over here, and let's see what we got. Oh, a tail! So he's got his wings, he's got the tail. Fuchsia, of course, has the dragon armor, so he knows what's in store, and we're gonna see a lot of promotion gear getting used in tonight's seed, I believe.
Yeah, and I think we also caught a glimpse of Temper at level 6 Black Magic, which is probably a little bit higher than you want to see it, but at least it's in reach.
Yeah, just on the edge of the levels you're liable to get naturally playing through this seed, so that's okay. You're not going to have a lot of charges, but you're going to have enough for when it counts. Both runners have a black and red mage, so they should both be able to get the job done from a temper perspective.
Yeah, Max plus Pi there in chat, kind of keeping an eye on magic for us when our eyes are a little too slow. Did I also miss fast at level 6?
It looks like a good level 6. Maybe a couple extra levels for a couple extra charges are going to be in order. With the power bonk, temper admittedly becomes slightly less important. Fast is a beaut because it's like a much bigger buff and it doesn't stack, so you don't have to worry about casting it a whole bunch of times anyways. Temper can really, you know, be optional when you've got the power bonk, if it has to be.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, fast is one of those spells. If I have to have one or the other, I want fast over temper, just because, you know, fast giving you those extra swings, it can really bring the improved crit rate some of the weapons have to light.
All right, we're not even 9 minutes in, but we're going to need a bit of a recap because a lot of stuff just went down. So, Sarda, who both Sforzand0 and Fuchsiafantasy visited right after getting the floater and the airship, which was easy for them because the king had the floater, Bicky had the canoe. It was a straight shot south to get the airship. They both immediately went to Sarda and picked up the crown. So Sforzand0 is in the process of doing the crown quest, and he's now going to get his opal armor and dragon armor, opal bracelet dragon. I'd be pretty happy to see that. And yeah, we're well underway here, and the tail from the canoe sage makes promotion to snap as well while getting all this done. So a jet seed so far, to be sure.
You realize this means that when they actually start diving dungeons, it's going to just be a nightmare, right?
Well, yeah, and you've got that feeling like, boy, this is too easy so far, so my opponent is obviously doing just as well as me, so I can't make any mistakes or any slip-ups. So it adds pressure to both of them. And these are the kind of people that are going to play really well with that kind of pressure, I assume. And I look forward to seeing how it goes down now. So which dungeon do you want to dive first is really the question here. Hit the incentivized locations seems to be standard protocol, but at the levels they're at, man, maybe someplace else.
Well, it's one of those things, I think a lot of times we see the incentivized location dives when things like the floater or the crown are still out there. You know, stuff where getting those early gives you a lot of free access to stuff you want. So I imagine that with the crown already in hand, the airship and the canoe under their belts, they're probably going to hit a lot of free locations first, and maybe save the incentivized locations for where they can just blast through them.
Oh yeah.
We haven't seen warp or exit yet, so that's probably going to take the ice cave off the table for now.
But we did find a sun sword, so there's your next best weapon for either that soon-to-be ninja, or you know, your knight in lieu of getting your hands on the Excalibur or Massman.
And you can eventually hand it down to your red mage.
Speaking of that red mage, you just found a Pro Cape for him as well. So the Cardia Islands have some good gear here. Pro Cape is the best shield for anyone that's not a fighter, knight, or ninja.
And I think, doesn't it just equal the best shields the ninja can equip anyway, just without the elemental resistances?
Well, that wouldn't make it equal then, would it? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure of the absorb of the fire shield and ice shield, actually, but the Pro Cape does provide 8.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think the fire and ice go above 8 absorb, but I also admittedly have to constantly open the, you know, helpful guides to equipment when I'm doing things. So, level 3 black magic. Fire 2 is the only thing that matters.
Haha, check that out. Fire and ice shields have 12 absorb. So they are better. Check that out. Wow, life 2 at level 3. That is going to be white mage, and white wizard only, I believe.
I believe so. So that white wizard is going to come into play here.
Still none of the heavy damage dealers. We've got ice 3, but we're looking for nuke. We're looking for fade.
And instead we get Exfer and Invis 2. Which, admittedly, are spells I don't mind seeing.
Not much there on the black level 4.
Yeah, Melman looks to be our last hope for any kind of non-elemental offensive magic.
Well, it's basically a smash and grab in Cardia and window shopping in Elfland. Both of these guys are jockeying for position. Neither one of them too eager to take on any challenges yet at their ridiculously low levels.
Well, with the world open to them, it's worth doing a little bit of exploration. And vanilla bottle at the Oasis.
Yeah, but not at a vanilla price. And Fuchsia's got just enough money that he picks that up right on the spot.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those situations where if you can go ahead and get it, you know, you can get more money. You can't necessarily guarantee you're going to remember you didn't get it. Fuchsia taking a very interesting route around the world. I guess heading back to pick up some of those spells at second level.
Yeah, maybe passing by on his way to Gaia. Maybe he's going to pop in, see what's for sale, pick up the bottle. $12,000 fast. It's going to put a hurt on the wallet at this point.
Now, like I said, it's one of those things. Fast is just one of those spells you don't want to not have out the gate. Or at least when you get to the end game. Those extra hits are massive in this game. Yeah, so I imagine that at least one of our runners is going to consider going ahead and hitting the key lock chest before they start their grind, see if they can pick up a second weapon to slap onto their red wizard or their ninja, depending.
Sounds like Fuchsia looks like he's going to go pay the kindly old king a visit, so that might be on his mind. At some point you have to get the Mystic Key anyway, so if you can do it this early, it's just fine. It kind of works into the route okay, and all the chests might be really helpful at this point when you're so low level.
Yeah. It is one of those things, you know, I personally tend to favor a kind of a mix of these two runners' parties. Like, I like having the white mage, and I'd rather have a thief over a black mage myself.
Yeah, it occurred to me as being a bit strange that they both took black mages, but so much more. They're both gonna, you know, play with that glass cannon philosophy. They're not gonna find their nuke in any plentiful capacity, though, which is going to be a bit of a problem, because I bet they were both hoping for that. Yeah. They don't know each other's party, so they don't know that they both have black mages, so there's nothing to worry about here, but they're going to feel like they're a little disadvantaged, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things, they still haven't checked Melmond as far as I can recall, so we still have one more shot at an accessible nuke.
When Melmond is your last hope, you got problems.
Now, you have to go to war with the army you've got. But yeah, it's one of those things, if Newt got shuffled to 7 or 8, you know, we might see it if it got to 7, but Sforzand0 leaving that Mystic Key unclaimed and going ahead and hitting ordeals up.
Yes, finally, someone's actually going to put some of this fantasy back in the game here. We were just walking around shopping for a while and collecting treasures, but oh man.
I don't know what kind of
he wasn't feeling that.
I don't know what kind of D&D campaigns you play in, but mine generally do have a good bit of shopping in them.
Fantasy shopping.
Well, yes, it's usually shopping for things like carts and mules to transport all the treasure that you're looting.
Yeah, except the mule is all sickly and the farmer wants to overcharge for the cart because it's been in his family for 3 generations.
Yes, but overcharging for a farmer is still like 5 gold.
Alright, we are in Castle Ordeals. Let's rumble. Let's see what we got here. Now, Castle Ordeals, known for its nasty Medusas, packs of undead, hard-hitting trap tiles. We'll see how it turns out.
But not its soft locks anymore. Yeah,
the vanilla version of this game has a bug that was recently patched, well, semi-recently patched by Entroper, that makes it so that now, even no matter how many times you climb these teleporters or staircases, they're staircases disguised as teleporters that go to weird places. No matter how many of them you step on, you will never overflow the game stack and cause it to crash. So you can get lost endlessly. It's great.
Oh, hey, we have a defense sword in the Corneria Treasury. And an Opal Gauntlet if you're into that. However, I suspect the Opal Gauntlet may soon wind up in some armor shop somewhere stockroom.
Yeah, the Opal Gauntlet is the best gauntlet to sell, because it is strictly worse than a pro ring and usually worth at least a little bit of money.
Sforzand0 having a little bit of trouble navigating this maze, though. He got sent back to the beginning at least once, and is still trying to feel out where the path to success is. Yeah, Ordeals is not a dungeon I dislike doing at relatively low levels, especially if I have a few high-end spells in my spell list. Because you can generally take out stuff here without too much trouble, and it's worth a good chunk of change.
Time for the proper hoard now. The Dwarf Cave's got a pretty big treasure room, key lock, that Fuchsia's about to pilfer. 8 chests here. Yep.
Think we're gonna see a lazy blacksmith?
Maybe. Most blacksmiths are lazy. I mean, that guy doesn't do anything until you literally hand him the materials. Like, he's just sitting there.
Well, in any case, the dwarves apparently mugged a thunder god earlier in the day.
Well, who knows how long that room's been locked. That could have been there since antiquity.
Well, I'm just saying, gods leaving their hammer around is no way to run a civil government.
I thought it was a scimitar.
I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Sforzand did finally find its way through the labyrinth of pillars, so we're going to get a chance to see what's up here in the top of Ordeals.
We got Quake proving its efficacy against the undead, gets that fight finished, and he's past the Nightmare Trap Tile now, so it's just the final half of this floor here. Nothing crazy yet, but the incentivized chest remains.
Yeah, you don't even have a lot of money up here, so... You know, if it weren't for the fact that you need this chest to finish the game, thanks to the flags that we're using... Oh, unrunnable zombie Ds!
That makes things interesting. Again, the Light Axe probably gave him the confidence to come here, even at the ridiculous low level, plus Fire 3.
Meanwhile, we do not have Nuke and Melman. We do have Lit 3 and Warp, though. And I think we saw Ruse over in the White Magic shop.
Yeah, Warp's a pretty big deal if we don't find exit either.
Yeah, that at least is going to make eventually hitting Ice Cave a little less painful. It looks like those zombie Ds had a little bit of meat on their bones. And Fuchsia is going to make the same play that Sforzand0 just made, heading to Ordeals. They're probably going to hide 5 just outside the desert.
Yeah, the old house you go in there as they pass that little desert on the way in and out of Ordeals. It was not as much of an ordeal as has been advertised. The unrunnable zombie Ds at the end is annoying. It's a surprise. But with the Light Axe and with Fire 3, it's not too much of a challenge. It didn't look too bad. But that's one thing under his belt. Now, Sforzand0 really should eventually hit up Melman here. But I think he wants to route that in after he gets the slam, so he's waiting to do it, I think. And that's unfortunate because it means he's not going to get work as soon as he could otherwise.
I mean, at this point, it's, what, a 50-50 shot with the slabs in the ice cave for the volcano? Or not the volcano, the waterfall?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So, You know, it's one of those things. Once he sees that bottle, he'll realize that he just needs to go ahead and make the trip to Melmond, because odds are he's probably not going to get that slab anytime soon without a little bit of effort.
Yeah, and in the case of both the waterfall and the ice cave, they're great places to have warp to save your time on the way out. So I could see it happening. As it stands, though, we're still very much neck and neck as they both continue traveling the world and taking care of incentivized chests and key-locked treasure. There's no clear winner at this point.
Sforzand0 almost doubling back for the Hooray Dwarf, but deciding that he needs to go ahead and get to looting. And he probably will also be really glad to see that defense sword.
Thor hammer, light axe, power bonk, defense sword. I mean, caster items flowing thick and strong. All of the good buff ones now in hand.
Yeah, because he's going to head to Corneria after, leaving the Thor hammer behind.
Do not want. No white shirt yet. I guess that would be the missing piece of the caster item puzzle as far as the full coup of everything you could ask for.
And I don't think we've seen the black shirt either.
Question in chatter. Nightmare's weak to ice. Answer, yes. That is something that maybe some people have known for a long time, but something that I just learned relatively recently.
And I learned just now.
We're all here to learn. That's the type of community this is. Because even though it's 30 years old, this game still holds mysteries.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things like, you know, one of the things that I've enjoyed about being on the Final Fantasy Discord is, you know, watching you guys' conversations as you slowly unravel the mysteries and then try to figure out how to cram new mysteries into the, like, 6 bytes you have left.
And as pointed out, there is an incredible amount of nuance to this game. And it goes beyond things like instant death spells working 1% of the time on basically any enemy, including the final boss, which is one of the most ridiculous quirks and something you won't find in any other game. That leads to some ridiculously amazing finishes and heart-wrenching defeats, and it's part of the magic and charm of it, is just how experimental it was at the time, and how much worked and how much didn't work, and how much has never changed, and how much has been completely thrown away. And looking at it as a timepiece is really something.
Oh, yeah, I've had people in chat during various streams stop and just ask, you know, wait, you can just instant kill chaos?
Yeah,
and it's great every time.
You sure can.
Looks like Sforzand0 has decided to go ahead and make that ice cave dip. Not a play that I am necessarily opposed to. It's a shame he hasn't hit Melmond up yet, but, you know, there's a good bit of treasure here. It's about right for the level he's currently at, and especially with the gear he's got on hand. As long as there's not anything particularly brutal down here, he'll be able to pick up a little more experience and hopefully find something that will give him a little more confidence hitting these other dungeons. Not that he needs that much, but, you know, it is one of those things outside of that dragon armor, he really doesn't have much in the way of elemental defense yet.
Well, speaking of things that are pretty nasty, we've got the Wraith, the Wraiths, who are packing ice too and frequently show up in nasty clumps. So,
okay, this is, I think, the third seed today where the Wraiths got shuffled something just brutal.
One of the things that happens with the skill and script and spell shuffles is that the enemies you fear are not the ones that have a lot of HP. They're the ones that show up in large packs. And if they also happen to get ambush shuffled to be able to ambush you frequently, they are the worst. And Wraiths are often a candidate for that. Caribes can be another, but they're world map most of the time, so they're not going to cause you too much trouble. And yeah, there are others in this family that are famously bad.
Yeah, we have some folks marveling over the modern battlefield option. There's that level 7 nuke.
That's just about out of reach. You're not going to get a lot of level 7 charges in a typical tournament race at the pace that these two are going to play at, and they both probably know that, unless there is something cruel and unusual in Temple of Fiends.
But we do have really cheap pro rings.
Yeah, there's a silver lining in everything. Yeah, $5,500. You're gonna get a full set. The Pro Ring is a beauty. It can be equipped by any class. It provides 8 absorb, a minimal absorb penalty, and it resists the death element. So you generally want to outfit your whole crew with them, with a possible exception of someone using the power bonk, because that's also a hand piece of gear. If that person also has a ribbon, so they don't need the death resist from the Pro Ring. That's pretty much what it boils down to.
Yeah, meanwhile, we have both Adamant and the Ice Sword in the top set of chests here in Ice Cave. Not a bad pair of things to find. At least Fuchsia's probably going to see a little more use out of the Ice Sword, but that Adamant is really nice to have on your knight if you don't come across Maza. The Excalibur the Adamant leads to. Question chat, who's up? I'd say it's probably a pretty even race so far. Sforzand0 has hit a couple of locations that Fuchsia hasn't, but Fuchsia's hit a few locations Sforzand0 hasn't. So, I'd say they're probably in about the same position right now. So anyway, remember what I said about how that Excalibur is going to be really handy if you don't find Mazdamun? Never mind.
On the topic of how many charges are you reasonably talking about for level 7? So white and black mages and wizards get their first level 7 charge at level 20. And red mages and wizards get their first level 7 charge at level 26. So you're going to get into the level 20? Probably. So, if you get up to level 23, that'll get you your 3rd level 7 charge. Your 4th one comes at level 26, so not very many charges.
Yeah, so at this point, I think we have more swords than we know what to do with.
Yeah, they got quite a collection. I mean, you could liquidate them if there's expensive gear here. You don't really need many. Only one at a time.
Yeah, so are you more of a just put the Mazdamun on the knight and let it do work kind of player, or if you have the option, you stick the Excalibur on your knight and shuffle the Mazdamun to your secondary fire so you can just put the melee damage?
When your party is low level and you're trying to claw your way through dungeons, I like putting Excalibur on the knight because it is just about as good. And I say that with an asterisk because it's not as good. But it is just about as effective when you're talking about chewing through medium-tier enemies. And it also attacks every element, so if your opponent has an elemental weakness, it takes advantage of it. So the Excalibur is a really good weapon. When you get to Topher and all bets are off, maybe shuffle him over the Mass Moon, because he's the only one doing serious attacking damage. Anyway, that's going to be plan A. So I could see passing it back, for the bosses or for the Temple of Fiends Revisited, but for ordinary business of clearing out dungeons, Excalibur's fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking. I tend to just favor a conservative, don't put all of your eggs in one basket so that if something terrible happens, you're not scrambling to recover. But I also don't actually run the game, so my opinion's kind of moot, and I just noticed that the Whiz Mummy encounter in the waterfall is unrunnable. And that's going to pop in a couple other places, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the good news is that this is a fight you often want to take because Whiz Mummies are worth a ton of EXP relative to, how much of a challenge this battle actually is. Sure, if they roll nasty skills, that's awful, especially if the mummies do, because they usually dominate the encounter. Unlike this example, where you've got 5 Whiz Mummies, and Fuchsia's going to be, oh, well, it's unrunnable, I guess I'll just claim a ton of EXP. Although this one might be runnable, because it's a really wonky encounter formation. Oh, and they have Glare, so not ideal. But Fire 3 looks like it's going to get most of the work done here.
Yeah, Glare, if I'm not mistaken, is a non-elemental death attack.
Which, if you're following along, is really cruel, because that means nothing will help you resist it. But the effects of spells in Final Fantasy I are not necessarily tied to their element. A spell can do damage, it can cause a status effect, it can instant death, but the element of the spell is completely separate of that. So, you know, you can have damage spell that's fire element, sure, but you can also have like an instant death spell that's poison element, and you can have a damage spell that's poison element. And in fact, this game does have both of those. It has an instant death poison spell and a damage poison spell that enemies have, and they're both called poison, so we frequently call them damage poison or death poison. It's brutal.
Yeah, just to kind of chime in with chat, while the, you know, dun 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 treasures in the ice cave were, you know, only exciting because you needed the rod, we did find both Adamant and Mazamune there, so it's definitely worth diving Ice Cave.
Chat chiming in to correct us. I had a feeling that it wasn't non-elemental because there aren't many things that are, but it looks like Glare is time elemental, so it gets thrown in there with Zap, the time elemental death spells. And there are not a lot of things that resist time. Of course, the Ribbon does, and Chaos does, and he's pretty much the only enemy that does, and the Black Shirt does. But the likelihood that your Black Wizard gets a black shirt on, I mean, it'd be a nice find if he doesn't have a ribbon.
Yeah. And it looks like we have a Mermaid's Dip on Fuchsia Fantasy's part.
It's a brave one. There's no incentivized chest here, so he's just doing it for the loot and the lulz. And I'm guessing he's looking for the shirts, possibly Maskmoon if there's no more incentive locations for it to be. Or it might not be incentivized in the Swiss round. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, it's not incentivized in the Swiss round. All that's incentivized for this round are items required for progress and the tail.
That's right. So yeah, if you want the Maskmoon, you gotta go looking for it, and I'm guessing that's what he's doing.
Yeah, unfortunately, we already know that he's going to turn up nothing in that regard, but he could come across something else of value. I don't think we've seen any ribbons yet, so there very well could be one hiding up in mermaids.
Yeah, you definitely want as many of those as you can get your hands on. There are 3 in total to find. None incentivized, as we talked about, so they're all going to be scattered who knows where. Speaking of damage poisons, Sforzand0 got ravaged by it just moments ago, if you were watching on the right. It says poison, and it does a ton of damage unless you have your ribbon or something that shields you from poison elemental.
Yeah, which, if I recall, outside of the ribbon is basically just the Aegis shield.
I think so, yes. So,
one
yeah,
of
those things, you're going to get it from poison damage, poison, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, one of the shirts might. I know that the black and white shirts tend to be kind of weird in what elements they guard against.
I can help you out there. So the white shirt is the probably less desirable of the two from a resistance perspective. It resists fire and death. And as we talked about, death is an easy one because pro rings give you death resistance anyway. The black shirt is probably slightly superior in that it resists ice and time. There are fewer ice attacks, and there aren't very many time attacks, but they all cause instant death, so it's nice to have that if you can. Now, the white shirt is also helpful because you can use it to cast Invis too, and that is probably its more important characteristic.
Well, speaking of the black shirt, the mermaids were hiding that, and that's actually really nice on Fuchsia's part because, well, since they both brought black wizards, he can at least strap that to his.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets around to that. You can also use it as an item to cast ice too, indefinitely, so that'll help you out there too when you find ice vulnerable enemies. Ice is the most powerful of the 3 damage spells for the elements fire, lit, and ice. The ice spells of every level do more than their fire and lit counterparts, so it's a nice one to have in general.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, the black shirt probably doesn't make Fuchsia necessarily feel like this dive is worth it, because I think that's about the only thing we've found that has value. But it at least means that he's not going to come up empty-handed, though we may see a reset anyway. Or at least a warp out. So.
And he has enough charges to warp most of the way up, so that'll save some time. That mermaid dive, he obviously didn't reset out of it, so he's satisfied with what he found there. Yeah, we'll see if he walks right over to the left. No, he's going to take that out and save. Maybe not ready to take on Kraken just yet.
Yeah, we may still see him make another dive at Kraken. He unfortunately does not have the sword advantage that Sforzand0 has, or dare I say the sword edge. But he does have a decent amount of magic.
Sforzand0 seems to be finishing off Volcano here. He's found the opal armor, which now that he's got the dragon armor on his knight is nothing more than a valuable trinket. But he'll cash that in. It usually sells for a pretty penny, and he is ready to take on Carry. He's got enough charges, enough levels, and great gear, so nothing's standing in his way here.
Yeah, likely we might still see a red dragon chest check, but we probably aren't too far off. And I apparently am cutting out, but hopefully that has corrected itself already.
The red dragon's an interesting one. You have to hit 3 trap tiles to get to it, and he is not interested. When it's not incentivized, you got your mass moon. It could have a ribbon, and he just missed out on it, sure. But Sforzand0 loves to get into the odds, and I think he would tell you that the odds of that having a valuable item were low enough that he didn't want to hit 3 trap tiles to find out.
Yeah, it's one of those things, at the level he's at, you know, you might be able to make an argument that you still get a little bit of value out of just taking those fights, just to kind of get a little extra experience under your belt while checking a location that, you know, your opponent might not check that has value, but Sforzand is also much better at this game than I am, so who am I to question it?
Well, the betterness is really made moot when you've got Carry with Thunder, so the dragon armor saves the day. The knight does not take a significant amount of damage because he resists lightning. And now it's really going to come down to, is that one power bonk going to be able to do the damage here? Throws up a couple invis too, so he's got a nice absorb evade boost, pardon me, and he's going to hope now that Carry starts attacking and stops casting deadly spells.
Well, Carry should go down this round. Carry usually does not wind up with a lot of health, but
and
still takes Sforzand0's party with her, except for the knight.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a trek, long, slow flight back to the clinic. So he's not going to lose any time on all that death, but boy, that was a bit more harrowing than he would have liked, I'm sure.
Yeah, Fuchsia is going to have probably a little more experience once he gets around to Carry. And definitely a lot more money.
Yeah, 55,000 GP chest there, and then a heal rod. Heal rod's a nice little free heals in fights that you have to take anyway. But he's in a bit too much of a hurry to spend his time whiling away, casting heal over and over and over again. So he's going to run from these lobsters and not checking a lot of chests on this floor as he scoots past, pilfering the Sharknado room and then heading down to the Kraken floor.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It is funny we call it the Sharknado room when no one ever actually steps on the Sharknado tile.
Because it's the Sharknado room.
Sforzand0 going ahead and picking up some level 6 white and black magic. Still has not made that trip to Melmond, as far as I can tell.
But he did pick up his level 6 fast, so...
Yeah, that's a move I'm sure we'll see Fuchsia... I don't think Fuchsia has picked up his level 6 magic yet.
Yeah, he tapped himself out when he bought the cheap bought the bottle there, so he's definitely got the funds in the coffers now, so he'll get around to it, I'm sure. Now Sforzand0, sailing up the coast, he's going to cut over and check the Oasis, which we know has just what he's looking for.
Yeah, and he's also sitting on a nice pile of change, so going ahead and dropping off that bottle, and Gaia probably going to do something similar to what Fuchsia's done, hitting Waterfall, hitting on rack, and then going on his merry way.
He picks up Nuke for the Black Mage, which I understand. Picks up Nuke for the red wizard, which is somewhat aspirational. And now he's out of cash for exit, so...
Now, it's one of those things, you know, it doesn't take too terribly long to do. And if you do wind up in a situation where you need that red wizard to be high enough level to cast Nuke, you're not going to be sad that you have Nuke.
Yeah, question from chat, Temper and Fast Share level. They do indeed, but both runners found the Power Bomb, the Power Gauntlet, right off the bat, so Temper is somewhat marginalized because people can cast Saber on themselves, whoever's going to be that damage dealer. And Sforzand0 already put it to really good use against Carry. He sabered himself up and then defeated Carry with like one swift blow after the rest of his party was destroyed.
So Sforzand0 is spending a little bit of time in Gaia, stocking up, probably anticipating that Sea Shrine dive. We're probably not going to see a trip to mermaids on his side. He already knows that there aren't any weapons that he needs at mermaids.
And speaking of Sea Shrine dive, Fuchsia wraps up his. Kraken proving to be no match. And now with the slab and the waterfall, he's going to finish off his last incentivized treasure chest here in ice. And he should be ready to call it go mode, and Sforzand0 is going to be in the same situation once he clears out the waterfall himself. So they sort of high-five as they fly backwards and forwards across the world and complete the dungeons that the other one just did.
Yeah, now the question I think on Fuchsia's side is he going to make that full dip into Ice Cave, or is he going to just grab his incentive item and go?
We shall see. He skipped a bunch of stuff in Sea Shrine already, but still ribbonless. And the Ice Cave has got that one room with 6 chests in it that's pretty tempting. So we shall see.
Yeah, he should at least get the adamant, because even if he decides to just quick clear ice, he's going to probably do it by using that warp, and unless he's just going for broke, he's going to pick up those 3 chests on the top.
And the good news for him is that with a slightly, higher level party now, he's going to be able to get past those Ice 2 Wraiths, even if he should encounter a good clump of them. Like this. Or not so much, as he just scampers away.
Well, that thief is definitely coming in handy here in Ice Cave. Because he's just able to run away from everything. Alright, so he's at least going to be checking these 3 chests. And with that warp, he does have the option of just leaving, but we'll see what decision he makes here in a second. And he is just going to take his rod, take his adamant, take his ice sword, and get out of dodge.
Yep, those the next 6 chests, one of them is guarded by a trap tile. Then the room after that is kind of sprawling and just has a few more, so he says no thanks, I'm moving on. We'll see how much he checks here in Volcano. This one is mostly free because it's a long walk along a bottom wall, so those tiles don't trigger encounters anyway. That can be a little confusing, and I can explain in more detail after we clean out the armory here, but the bottom row of tiles inside every room, aka immediately as you enter through a doorway, the ones that you can go left and right to, have a special graphical detail at the top of the inner roof, and because of that, they don't have the logic that says, oh, check and see if it's a random encounter. So if you see runners run left and right along the bottom row of any room, they can do so without ever triggering an encounter. And I'll highlight a couple other rooms where that comes up, because there are some treasure rooms in Sky Palace that are very popular to check because they also are like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things I, like in my casual play, have started to be better about paying attention to when I'm in one of those rooms and can take advantage of the free steps. Yeah, so Fuchsia is kind of traveling over ground we've seen with Sforzand0. Although, I am curious to see if he's going to get that katana pickup, because that's going to give him a good layout for swords for the rest of the game. Even though he doesn't have that Mazmune, having the katana on his ninja, having the sun sword for the red wizard, and having Excalibur on the knight.
If you're looking at Fuchsia's screen and thinking to yourself, that font looks different, and those lowercase letters are different, he is using one of the things that we sort of, encourages graphical creativity. A lot of runners are using slightly graphically modified ROMs that have sprites from later games, or different fonts, or different icons, and of course the game logic cannot be modified in any way, and generally, if you try to get fancy in some kind of nasty way like that, the randomizer won't correctly be able to randomize your ROM anyway. So graphical hacks are encouraged, but of course we limit that to just visual changes.
Yeah, we do have a wipe for Sforzand0 in the Waterfall Cave. WizMummies pulled out a few nasty tricks, and apparently stone poison was something Fuchsia just didn't see. So 2 of his party members, it looks like, got glared, and then the other 2 got turned to stone.
Yeah, I said death poison earlier, which was a strange thing for me to accidentally blurt out, but it is in fact stone poison. So poison and stone in this game sort of share the element. So anything, they share the element, which is already confusing because elements aren't necessarily tied to effects anyways. But yeah, there's a damage poison and a stone poison.
And there we have Fuchsia, as I kind of expected, swapping around so that each character is wielding their ultimate weapon that's not the Mazmune.
It's a nice thematic choice. Meanwhile, Sforzand0 continues to lay waste to undead with the light axe, the fire 3 charges. There was some unrunnable mud goals that wasted a bit of his time earlier, but he's almost finished off the waterfall.
Yeah, now that he's seen what WizMummies have at their disposal, he is not going to play around with them.
And this is an example of the trap tile being so randomly different. This particular trap tile is a crazy encounter that has WizMummies, regular mummies, cockatrices, and Paralisks, and you're almost always going to get a full tableau of enemies, but whether you get a whole bunch of WizMummies, which you want for EXP, but perhaps not because of the skills they have in this seed, or more of the regular mummies or cockatrices or Paralisks is random each time you step on the tile. So, hard to manipulate for your advantage, you just kind of got to deal with what you get.
Yeah. Fuchsia has made it down to carry, and it looks like he also skipped out on the Red Dragon chest. So
Lays on the hold, paralyzing carry, which is a nice master stroke. And the rest of this should be pretty relaxing if he can finish off carry before she breaks the paralysis.
That stabs weakness. You always, it's one of those things I can never remember which spells are applicable, but Fuchsia doesn't even know the bullet that he just, told to stand still for a few minutes.
There was a freight train coming and he just removed a length of track. And it just went crumbling off into the distance. He had nothing to worry about. So yeah, that was textbook demolition of carry right there. Avoided all the challenge. Sforzand0 once again. Now, oh yes, without warp, having to backtrack through the trap tile and walk his way all the way out. So this is where not having warp has probably cost him the most time so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things, it's understandable that he would avoid Melmond. First of all, because Melmond is a terrible place and no one should want to go there. But, yeah, it is one of those things where... I have lost my train of thought. It is one of those things where, he does have the ability, I believe, to cast level 5 spells, so... It is odd that he's not filling out that spell book a little bit better. I guess he knows that none of the spells outside of maybe Warp and Exit are available. Well, he knows Exit's not available. So he just might not consider Warp worth the trouble.
It might have been a case of odds, where he was like, the time's going to take me to check versus the odds that's where it is, and so on. Or, maybe he intended to and sort of forgot and was like, crud when he finally got there. So it's another one we can ask him about towards the end of the match. That and the skipping the red D chest, just get his opinion on that, little insight into why he made those decisions.
And we have another Pro Cape in the Earth Cave. So, interesting that Fuchsia's opting to check these chests. Earth Cave is usually a dungeon even when runners don't necessarily have everything they want, where, there are a few chests they'll check on the way down, but they'll save most of their running around for Sky Castle and Mirage Tower.
Yeah, the Earth Cave gets a really bad rap of having spread out chests and nobody wants to check, but there are a couple of rooms that are not too far out of the way that are pretty good. That room there is almost on the route and has 3 items in it. And then there's a room after the vampire floor that has 5 chests in it. And I mean, that's not that bad. You can dodge all the trap tiles in these rooms, so they don't seem to take that long. And recently it's starting to enjoy a bit of a renaissance of having its chests pilfered. So it's good to see variety and the changing, the shifting sands of player strategies morph over time. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I believe this morning we saw Demarine actually dip Earth early, specifically because she anticipated that Bismarck was not going to go to Earth Cave early, and it wound up paying off for her in a seed where Bottle was actually shuffled to one of the Earth Cave chests.
It wasn't that long ago that no one ever wanted to go to Earth, and then Artea started popping his head into the first floor to see if he could find anything, and it changed the game. So every time, the hive mind settles on, oh, this is the best, somebody challenges that idea, and almost invariably, under certain circumstances, they're right. Here's another room that Sforzando's in. Those 4 tiles that he just scampered back and forth across, being the bottom row of a room, will not trigger random encounters.
Yeah, and Sforzando didn't bother with Mermaid Floor, I think, but is going to dip into some of these, more out-of-the-way chests on the way to Kraken.
Say hello to the vampire.
Hi, Vampire.
Say goodbye to the vampire.
Goodbye, Vampire. Yeah, it is one of those things, like, I personally credit that to the dice gods being capricious and mercurial entities that really just will change the odds to whatever is the most entertaining.
Alright, we got a little giants, and that was like a raiding party there, the giants and the grimps, and they had like a scouting wolf, but he just runs away. Got a pack of formerly unrunnable wizards, but with unrunnable shuffle, now runnable. Not nearly as treacherous as they can be.
Yeah. The thing that always bothers me about that room is I know where most of the spike tiles are, but it always seems like that bat moves into the perfect position to where my choice is wait 30 seconds or just take the stinking fight.
Oof. And nasty eye mages with ice too. Correction, before I thought it was the wraiths because I didn't quite catch it, but it looks like it's the eye mages that actually have ice too. If you're wondering why I say eye mage instead of image, which of course it is, there is a fun percent hack that allows some of the enemies to have their names changed, and owing to the popularity of Apple devices of yesteryear, the image became the lowercase I mage, and it got stuck in my head, and I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah, Alliger Brap asking chat if they're looking for a key item. They know where the key items are. They are, however, ribbonless on both sides. So...
Yeah, still ribbonless. That's kind of the big thing that's still being hunted for sure. As Randomania joins us, raiding with a party of 7, welcome, all of you. My name is Nitz. I'm here with Wout. We're covering this Stage 3 race between Fuchsiafantasy and Sforzand0, both 2-0 up to this point, and looking to go, of course, up to 3-0 and be amongst the leaders of the pack in our Final Fantasy Randomizer tournament. As we approach the hour mark, both of these runners are very close. Fuchsia about to take down his 3rd Fiend, and Sforzand0 getting close to bringing down his 2nd, but Fuchsia's 3rd is Lich, so not a long time to get down there and catch up for Sforzand0 either. We had a very early floater and canoe available from the King and Vicky respectively, and then we went over to Sarda and got the crown, and both runners completed that quest very quickly, so it was a long time before any dungeons were even dived into, and Now we're just racing through the Fiend dungeons to get ready for the battle in Temple of Fiends Revisited, of course, without any ribbons. There's still a big question mark as to how hard this finale is going to be here.
Yeah, both runners making a lot of the same plays. The biggest difference at this point being Sforzand0 made a point to dig out Ice Cave and actually was rewarded with a Mazamune for his efforts. Fuchsia, though, having Excalibur, Katana, and Sun Sword on his side, it doesn't quite make up for the Mazamune, but it at least gives you a little bit of offensive firepower that you might have otherwise not had.
Yeah, Fuchsia cleaned out the mermaids, and Sforzand0 cleaned out the Ice Cave. And the difference was that Sforzand0 found the Mazamune, and Fuchsia didn't find anything quite as good as that, but it's still very close. And it was a quicker go for him to visit the mermaids as opposed to cleaning out ice. Sforzand0 didn't have warp, and he also didn't have warp when he completed the waterfall, so he lost a lot of time just walking around. So he's got a gear lead, but he's got a slight progression deficit to make up here.
Yeah. Now, fortunately for him, he is clearing out, he doesn't have that far to go to finish off water, and Earth is going to probably be about as fast for him as it was for Fuchsia. The real question is he going to hit the Mirage Tower Sky Castle combo before he hits Earth? Because he can't pick up a little time on Fuchsia if he can just run past all the chests in Earth.
Yeah, where to check the chests? So far we know that Earth didn't seem to have much of merit, so if he does make that play, pick up the chime and do Sky first, we know the chests are denser there, and we know that there's liable to be good stuff because it hasn't been anywhere else, and those ribbons got to be somewhere. Although we haven't really seen everything because there's been a lot of chests skipped so far by both players.
Yeah, I mean, neither of them has touched Marsh Cave, and neither of them is going to touch Marsh Cave, I imagine. There's a Vorpal, which I'm sure some members of chat will be excited about, and our first ribbon of the match.
You're not excited about the Vorpal?
I am team, it's a sword.
It's not just a sword. It's a sword that owes its heritage to D&D, like so much of this game.
It owes its heritage to Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, via D&D. If it wasn't in D&D, it wouldn't be in this game.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But you're indeed right that it wouldn't be in D&D if not for Lewis Carroll. Or, we could throw Tolkien's name in there too. Not that he had anything to do with the Vorpal sword, just everything else about this world, except red mages. Completely original concoction, as far as I know.
And the best parts, so it all works out.
Yeah, well, when you love it as much as I do, you're willing to overlook anything they begged, borrowed, or stole.
I mean, it's one of those things, they basically ripped off D&D, and D&D, as you just pointed out, ripped off everything else. Sforzand0, though, finally making that play to Melbourne. That's the name of this town that no one likes.
Mel, whatever.
Opting to go ahead and put Warp in his first slot. That is an interesting choice.
A bold move, Cotton.
Well,
we'll see how it plays out.
Well, in that level slot on a Black Mage, you're probably not going to accidentally cast it. It's a lot less painful than on a Red Mage or a White Mage.
This is true, and the other good news is that Warp is not nearly the time loss that the exit boss is, generally.
Confetti Giant asking in chat if these are custom sprites on Fuchsia's side. They are. They are the Valkyries of Light mod developed by Terralyn, who was here earlier. I assume she's still around.
Yeah, it's a good-looking sprite set. Roughly original creation, obviously inspired by gender bending all of the classes, and Fuchsia's a big fan.
No, it is a very good set. I have tinkered around a little bit, trying to kind of, combine it with some sprites from some other stuff to get a set that I'm happy with for my own personal play. Alright, yeah, Terralyn is in chat with us. Let's see here. Yeah, we also have some discussion going on with black belts. For those who watched the previous tournament, you are likely aware that the black belt was very strong there. This time around, they've lowered the experience gain a good bit, which has made grinding up that black belt take a good deal longer, to the point where it's generally not worth doing unless... It's generally not worth doing. I don't think there's actually a circumstance here in the Swiss round where that black belt grind is going to look good.
If it would be advantageous, we might never see it, because the prevailing theory is that at the current EXP boost, there's just not enough hours in the day to grind your black belt up to where they're going to be useful, versus, you know, getting the gear you're going to find anyway as a result of clearing out the dungeons and equipping a knight who doesn't need the levels to perform, you know, well enough to adequately defeat the game, because the enemy stats are not quite as high as they were in the last tournament either. The feedback from the players and at the end, I only got into this community towards the conclusion of that tournament anyway, is that it really, oh boy, Sentries with nuke. So
that's where that nuke wound up. Fuchsia barely managing to get out of that fight with 5 HP. Good lord.
Good news, though. The 5 HP was on the knight, and the knight has life, and the red wizard has life, and in no time at all, this party's going to be, hopefully, mostly put back together. But to finish the thought... the massive potion chugging competition.
Yeah, the downside is you're not going to have very many heals on Fuchsia's side after this.
No, getting nuked by sentries. I mean, are they just sentries if they're wielding nuclear weapons, or is it a misnomer at this point? I feel like they're the war mechs.
I mean, technically, they are being sentries, and Fuchsia's not even bothering checking those chests. He knows how common sentries can be here, and just wants out.
Yeah, he escapes with his life, and he's going to take that knowledge and literally run with it. But to finish the thought, the way that the enemy scaling and stat progression scaling was so high, kind of forced a single strategy of getting a black belt and grinding them in various ways. And basically, the players demanded variety and something a little bit more nuanced. And so with lower experience scaling and lower enemy scaling, there's basically more ways to win. As you can see here with no black belts and different parties and a pretty close race to this point. So
yeah,
that's where we are.
That has been one really enjoyable thing with this tournament, is you've seen a variety of strats. You know, there are folks who swear by the double red mage setup. You have folks swearing by the double fighter. You know, you have people bringing thieves, although not quite so many in this round, just because the lower enemy stats does make combat a little less, you know, needing that running need to be critical. But you still see it.
The other curiosity that really led to the downfall of the thief recently, and this was completely unintentional, but one of the things I wanted to do to speed the game up was simply to speed up some of the battle animations. So there was precedent set. We already have a bunch of speed hacks in Final Fantasy Randomizer, and I dug into the code and figured out a way to animate all the battle menus slightly faster, whether it's the classic UI on the left or the modern UI on the right. They animated exactly the same speed, and it's like shaves off almost a third of the frames or more from the original vanilla game, and it makes battles way faster, which means you don't have to run from them as much. And since you're not running as much because the battle menus themselves are faster, the the spell effects are faster when you cast AoE spells. You don't need to run as much because it doesn't save you as much time anymore. So if you don't need to run as much, you don't need to thief as much. And that's why thieves are not as popular as they were.
Yeah, and that's also why you've been seeing a lot of what I've seen referred to as the Mage Rainbow parties in this tournament so far, where you take a fighter and all 3 mage types. And for a brief second there, we did have double fiend fighting going on, but Lich, gonna Lich. And...
yeah, I don't even know if Lich 1 counts as a fiend sometimes. It's just an inconvenience. But I mean, you gotta pop.
I mean, you get a shiny ball out of beating him up, so I guess he gets to be part of the club.
He squeaks in by virtue of just like being born into it. No merit whatsoever.
The Lich is a trust fund baby theory is one I haven't heard before, but I think I like it. But with that, Fuchsia Fantasy has his 4th orb lit.
Yeah, so he has carved out a full dungeons lead over Sforzand0 here, so he's got a bit of ground to catch up if he's going to make this a close one. Meanwhile, Fuchsia is just about ready to rock. Again, single ribbon, but a low-level charges of the wall spell might give him the confidence to take on Topher without looking for more. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to keep an eye peeled for what level Fuchsia's looking at right now. I believe most runners like to be around 18 or 19 going into Temple of Fiends Revisited. And only having 1 ribbon and that dragon armor, I don't know if that's going to affect Fuchsia's equation or not.
Yeah, level 19 is common, you see nowadays, with the enemy scaling where it is. If you've got good gear, that's usually high enough. Level 20 would give you that first level 7 charge, so you could have a nuke, which could really come in handy. So, we'll see how much grinding takes place here. Sforzand0 finds a ribbon. He's going to keep checking. He's looking for another one. At this point, any chest he checks that Fuchsia didn't puts him further behind, unless, of course, it contains a ribbon. And that'll hopefully enable him to make some sort of comeback here. But we now turn our attention to Fuchsia, who is in the Temple of Fiends Revisited.
And almost immediately gets jumped by a pack of Chimera, followed by a pack of Frosties. But I imagine that Fuchsia has a good enough feel for the encounter table to where he's, trying to kind of land a decent spacing here for the beginning of Temple of Fiends.
He's ambushed by the Phantom, but after 79 damage just runs away. One of the things about Unrunnable Shuffle is that the Phantom doesn't really count as a boss, he's just another trap tile. So he can be shuffled to be runnable. That's something we might revisit because, well, again, it was sort of unintended. We could force the Phantom to be unrunnable, but that will force whatever the B side of that encounter is too. So, trade-offs. And right now, the Phantom can be runnable.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, too, where, I kind of just like the fact that you can just run from the Phantom. Something I was going to add, and I can't remember what it was. Ah, well, it must not have been important. Anyway, we're on the Earth floor for Fuchsia as Sforzand0 gets up to that cube tile.
Ah, these pesky golems.
Yeah, seeing more of those unrunnable mud golems. So I imagine Sforzand0 is feeling a little bit behind. Because he is just going ahead, skipping these chests, which aren't that bad a check when you have warp, and he is just going to book it up Sky Castle.
Book it, yes, but he's going to pause to take out this eye because pretty good EXP from an eye.
Pretty good XP, and he knows that the eye isn't that dangerous.
Yeah, I think in the back of his mind, he would like to hit level 20, and he is going to check these 4 chests. There's no encounters in this room because, again, it's the bottom of the room situation.
And he finds an Aegis shield for his trouble.
Yeah, that's a fine piece of gear there. With only 1 ribbon, his knight doesn't get it. It's going to put it on his Life 2 caster, I think. And that does mean that that Aegis shield is going to come into play because it's going to give his knight that poison resist.
Yeah, and that is not a terrible... that is a... Okay, that is a good decision. That is actually a very vanilla play. I believe pretty much any guide from back when this game was new suggested, yeah, just stick this defensive stuff on your fighter and trade the ribbons to everyone else.
The only nerve-wracking one that the knight misses because of the power bonk is death resist. There's just a lot of death out there in this game, so it always makes me nervous. But
I'm going to be honest. I generally just put the power bonk on the knight anyway, and just equip a pro ring. Like, don't even bother equipping the power bonk. Just sacrifice that gear slot.
Yeah, that's a fine choice too. But he's opted not to do that either. So he's rolling dirty. We'll see how it works.
Red Giants and Agama is apparently an unrunnable encounter.
And Sforzand0 makes it to Tiamat.
Yeah, Sforzand0 just flew through this dungeon. I don't even think he saw the sentries.
Good for him. Fuchsia, on the other hand, hitting encounter after encounter here. Big pack of fires, but again, with unrunnable shuffle, not the time sink they may have otherwise been. People say Tiamat is just 5 Agamas duct taped together. Sorias or iguanas, if anything, but it's not even close to the Agama in color, unless you're suggesting they were like duct taped together in such a way that they were beginning to suffocate and turn purple.
Yeah, the real question is, we know Tiamat 1 had some rude things. What will Tiamat 2 have in store for us? Some rude punching off the bat.
Carry 2, that is. Carry 2.
It's been a long day. Hush.
It's been. Trying to paralyze carry 2 is not liable to work.
Now, it gives your black wizard something to do.
It does.
And it means you're not spending some of your better spells.
And here's another example of taking advantage of the bottom row of the room. See, watch as he moves through these rooms. He's always going to stay on the bottom row where he can, in that door, along the bottom of this room, inside that door, and then as he enters this room, along the bottom, through there, and along the bottom again. And all of those along the bottom of room tiles won't trigger random encounters. So you'll see Sforzand0 take exactly the same route through the water floor as Fuchsia did.
Interesting choice not to layer up the defense for Kraken 2, because Kraken 2 is kind of that first boss that can one-shot even your high defense characters. But I guess you should... Go ahead.
Oh, no. Finish the thought, please.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. Fuchsia may be thinking that Sforzand0 is roughly neck and neck with him, which isn't too far off. Sforzand0 blew through that air dungeon, and while I was looking over at Sforzand0's screen, what happened?
Well, Kraken 2 happened, and the wheels are coming off real fast here and there they go. So that's a typical Kraken 2 wipe, just the way that the book says it might happen. So
all right, chat catching me up. That was a nuke.
Nuked and then beat up. So Sforzand0 checks the 2 chests there, not too much. He has no idea what's in store. And ladies and gentlemen, now we have a true race. We've got a bit of a game breaker in Kraken 2. We have no idea how Sforzand0 is going to fare. We've got a 1-floor lead now as he enters into Temple of Fiends. At the 1 hour and 15-minute mark, he may think he's ahead, but he probably knows that he lost some time backtracking out of Waterfall and so on. So Sforzand0 may know that he's also behind. And if he's behind and he's on this floor and he hasn't lost yet, that might be a clue that it's going to turn ugly for him. So there's a lot of meta game that I'm trying to work through in my head here, but the reality is this is now anybody's game to win or lose.
Yeah, well, I mean, the metagame is kind of what you have to think about at this point. These two runners have enough experience. They're both thinking in terms of metagame.
It doesn't affect your moment-to-moment decision-making. I mean, you're just going to try and beat it, right? There's not much else on your plate here, but it does give you an idea of what might be in store. And he's probably suspecting now that it's going to be a pretty hard slog at the finish.
So Sforzand0 just hit level 20, it looks like, having to grind through these unrunnable zombie Ds, which you should dodge the first time, but now they're both just in zombie D hell.
Zombie D hell, zombie D heaven, depends on who you ask. Although with the easy to dodge, easy to dodge, easy to dodge, easy to waste a lot of time, and it can grow increasingly frustrating. Nothing's going to dodge that light axe, though, and between that and charges he doesn't want to spend, it's going to take a little bit to get this done. Mage staff helps out, because the fire damage is also very effective against the undead.
Yeah, but those couple of unrunnables gave Fuchsia time to get ahead, and Sforzand0 takes another unrunnable.
So look at that, just the lead changing hands right back after that wipe and resume for Fuchsia. So very, very close now as they work their way toward the Lich 2 refight, which Fuchsia is now about to do. As we approach the 80-minute mark here, we're still 2.5 minutes out. I'd like to thank our hosts tonight, Randomizer, and our restreamer, Maximum Barnage, doing a bang-up job. Of course, my co-commentator, Woat. I am Nitz__ on Twitch. Feel free to follow any and all of us if you're interested. And of course, our two runners tonight, Fuchsiafantasy and Sforzand0 with a 0. And finally, our tracker, Melee Wizard, who has done a flawless job keeping us all up to date on what's going down and who has what.
And we have both runners in the Lich 2 fight. Fuchsia gets out of it first, having gotten into it first, but I cannot imagine Sforzand0's more than a couple of rounds behind.
Sforzand0 won his last match by 3 seconds, so he literally knows every second counts. And you just gotta do what you gotta do to beat these bosses in order, to maintain your composure, and try not to waste time in menus, waste time thinking when you could have, had your plan formulated ahead of time.
Or waste time getting jumped by 3 lizards and their mentor. And I think that's going to be another lead change, as Sforzand0 is able to kind of slip past, although Fuchsia may be able to just go ahead and jump back into the lead. Never mind!
Yeah.
An immediate encounter after that, but he can run from this. But now Sforzand0's getting the unrunnable, and we've got 3 Agamas that Fuchsia can run from, so 2 lead changes in 1 floor. Fuchsia's the first to carry 2.
It's impossible to say at any given moment now precisely who is ahead and who is behind us. They both are fighting. Oh, geez, these pesky Agamas interrupting me. All right, gets them out of the way, and now we've got double carry, or we're about to. Oh no, we won't, because Fuchsia dispatches his carry too, just as Sforzand0 prepares to take on his. So just a fiend separates them at this point. A little bit of shuffling, and the knight gets a shield.
Look, chat. I'm gonna try and call a lead when it's like that because it's just fun, okay?
Starving Poet in chat says he never thought you'd see a nail-biting FFR race. Well, you obviously have not been watching enough of this tournament, because we have had not 1, but 2 3-second differences, which is absolutely ridiculous. So close you can't tell on stream. I had the pleasure of calling 1, and I'm on the edge of my seat then, just like I am now. And I can't wait to see how this one finishes off. Fuchsia runs into another giant pack on the water floor, and that'll give Sforzand0 a bit of time to hopefully catch up here.
Yeah, see, the only problem I'm having with this nail biter is Falconic has been convinced for the longest time that I curse races to be nail biters, and I finally managed to disabuse him of the notion this morning that I don't call nail biters, and then this happens.
Yeah, well, it's not a curse in the slightest. If anything, you bless the game with extreme excitement value, and now I'm going to take you everywhere I go like some sort of mystic totem. It's like we need woe to make this the greatest race it can be.
Not so, you two.
I mean, whether it's complete coincidence or, complete mysticism and influence on your part, it doesn't hurt to have you around.
Well, the thing is you called one of those 3-second races. I was tracking that 3-seconder.
Yeah, front row seat is always the best. If you're watching this and you're like, how can I get involved? I don't know if I'm a speedrunner or if I'm extroverted enough to broadcast myself playing these games. You can get involved by joining our Discord, getting in on the conversation, sharing your stories, or, playing casually on your own. You don't have to stream this by any means. It's a great game casually. With all of the speed hacks and improvements now, it's so much more fun for anyone to pick up and play and be part of the community that way. And tracking is another way to get involved. You're watching from the driver's seat. You're keeping track of who's doing what, and the interface is fun to learn, and no pressure because you're just kind of quietly behind the scenes helping make this magic happen. Now let's get back to the action because we're back on Kraken 2 here, and he's being a jerk once again.
Yep, busting out that nuke early on, but Fuchsia's able to weather it this time a little bit better. Partially because Fuchsia knows it's coming. Does keep his heavy hitters up front, which, considering the limited life access Fuchsia has, not the worst move. And brings Kraken down, yes. But the ninja goes with him.
The ninja goes, and so too goes Charger 2 of Nuke. So Fuchsia knew not to mess around and pulled the trigger on the big guns himself. So that's one less nuke for Tiamat 2 or for Chaos. So Kraken extracts the toll to get through, and Sforzand0's about to run into this freight train himself. So let's see how he fares in his first attempt at Kraken 2. Does not know what he's in for. Yeah. Let's see how he plays it.
Does catch a water encounter on the way down. And is going to shuffle both the White Mage and the Knight to the back.
Wall and fast on the Knight. Tragically, that wall isn't going to do anything against this nuke.
But the Knight manages to tough it out, although the Black Mage, takes a dirt nap.
The Black Mage does what Black Mages do, but the wall is up now. Does the Red Mage have fast? He does not. So no fast, no charges of Cure 4. It's just going to be a swing fest here. And maybe some more defense and then some more power block.
Yeah, speaking of swing fests, we have Tiamat swinging for the fences. And it looks like Fuchsia's mostly just going to rely on that melee damage to carry the day, relegating his Black Mage to throwing out heal potions and hold spells.
Quick question from chat. Are they running different versions? No. They are taking advantage of some of the different fun flags. So on the right, Sforzand0 has checked off the modern battlefield option, which makes the battlefield looks more like Final Fantasy 2 and 3 Japanese versions. It was a hack we put in just to kind of...
sorry to cut you off there, but Fuchsia got the hold on Tiamat 2. And brings her down.
That's a thing of beauty. And on the left, Fuchsia's using a ROM hack called the Valkyries of Light, which gives you some new sprites, and it just makes all the Warriors of Light look different. And, any graphical tweaks are encouraged for variety's sake, but of course, the game has to be functionally identical.
Yeah, and Sforzand0 makes it through Kraken 2, so at this point, it's looking like it's Fuchsia's race to lose, but if this Chaos pulls anything out that disrupts Fuchsia's buffing strategy, that could change very quickly.
And here goes. We're going to start off with a fast on the Knight, and a wall on the Red Wizard. Power bonk. Nice and conservative off the start. Chaos begins with Fire 3, but that's well resisted by this party.
I mean, it cut close on the Black Wizard there. Probably wouldn't have been enough to down him, or her, but still not something you want to see.
I think you don't count on too much out of this Black Wizard. Oh boy! What you don't count on is Chaos punching for that kind of damage against your Knight after all the buffs. It's going to be all hands on deck here. This is exactly what Fuchsia didn't want after shuffling the Knight to the back. We're just pouring in the heal pods now, and it looks like Chaos is hitting pretty hard. And the Knight's only doing 170 so far, so this could get ugly really fast for Fuchsia here. Oh boy.
And Chaos casts fast!
Boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. That's...
Tiamat 2, meanwhile, is tearing into Sforzand0.
The Knight, the lady at the bottom with the white tiara there. To answer that question, yeah, with fasted Chaos, this is really just a question of how much HP does Chaos have. Looks like Sforzand0's running into some trouble here on Tiamat 2. He's gonna wipe.
Fuchsia getting some good licks in, but if Chaos pulls out any more nasty tricks,
There's
this is
nobody
a
left to
damage race
hit.
now.
Nobody left to hit. Oh, that thunder is a blessing in disguise. Another swing. 401 doesn't do it. 250.
Oh, and there's another wipe. This is a race again, ladies and gentlemen.
By this point, both runners must know that their opponents have wiped now, because as we tick up to, approaching the 90-minute mark, there's enough mutual respect here that if it were, a gimme, one of them would have won by now, and they both know that about each other. So, of course, Fuchsia having wiped on Chaos, Sforzand0 having wiped on Tiamat too, they know exactly what's happening now, and it's a question of, are they going to try anything different, or do they think the party is almost good enough and they just need another crack? But with Kraken 2 having Nuke, Tiamat 2 punching very hard, and Chaos punching very, very hard and with fast, this could be a bit of a longer race if we don't see a bit of luck or a shift in strategy that manages to get past all that.
Yeah, I'm going to point one thing out to you. With one ribbon in the mix, neither of these runners want to see another crack. Puns! But yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. At this point, they know that their opponent is almost certainly in Temple of Fiends Revisited, and the real question that has to be in your mind is, how can I get through this without grinding? Because if I stop to grind and my opponent doesn't, and they're good enough to get through this, then I lose.
Yeah, if you're gonna do like a grind and exit and save and start over situation, then you have to accept the fact that it might not have been necessary and you might lose. It's kind of a, I think this is way harder than it looks sort of gamble, and I'm going to gamble on my opponent, wiping 2 or 3 times, giving me that chance to gain a few levels and come back tougher. Doesn't look like either of them wants to entertain that thought. See, Sforzand0 hasn't got to Chaos yet, so he doesn't realize that Chaos is even worse than the things he's already overcome. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the thing is, Sforzand0 at least has... He can at least layer on some Invis 2s that Fuchsia couldn't. He has the white shirt, Fuchsia doesn't. And so he at least, as long as that white mage stays upright, can neuter what Chaos can do physically. Chaos still has some nasty abilities outside of that, but he does at least have that in his corner.
Yeah, Fuchsia is lacking Massa. Our tracker's all over that. It was in Ice Cave, and he peeled out before finding it.
And I believe White Shirt was also in Ice Cave.
Yes, Sforzand0's got some nice gear. But the difference is he's had some run with luck. He hasn't even got to Chaos yet, so he doesn't even know what he's up against on that level. Chaos has fast and already hits hard before casting fast, so Chaos is a killing machine, and enough HP to not be any kind of quick pushover either. A charge or 2 of Nuke isn't really going to make that much of a difference. You need to somehow get that Knight amped up enough that they can start doing hundreds and hundreds of damage with their attacks. That's how you're going to have to win, I think. And we'll see if either of them can do that in the short term, or if there is going to need to be a grind here. I'm not sure. Time will tell.
Yeah. While we kind of have a moment going over kind of the safer ground, we do have an exhibition race coming up in about half an hour over on the Speed Gaming family of channels. I believe it is still unclear if that's going to be Speed Gaming 1 or Speed Gaming 2, and I'm sure Zardia, sitting there in chat, bragging about how this whole mess is his fault, will be more than happy to fill us in when it gets closer to go time. So, assuming this race wraps up in about 30 minutes, there is still some Final Fantasy action to go tonight.
And if you're like me and you literally cannot get enough, that's where you should be heading after this race. Speed Gaming and Randomania have been amazing partners of this community throughout the duration of this tournament so far. And it's just so much fun to see so much FFR content out there, and like huge crowds turning out and amazing races to boot. So yet another one for the archives as we continue here with this neck and neck race between Fuchsiafantasy and Sforzand0. You're catching this one on Randomania 1. I am Nits __ the underscore. So nice, I underscored it twice with Wote, our tracker Melee Wizard. Our restreamer tonight is Maximum Barnage. And our runners, of course, Fuchsiafantasy and Sforzand0 with a 0.
Yeah, and if you are enjoying what you're seeing, be sure to give the Randomania family a follow here on Twitch. That's Randomania, and then Randomania's 2 through 4. If you're someone who somehow wandered in here seeing that there was a bunch of people watching the original Final Fantasy.
Yeah, there's tons of NES and older generation randomizer games that are emerging now and building up their own like passionate communities. It's an untapped, like, I mean, some of it has been tapped. Legend of Zelda randomizer and, you know, Link to the Past randomizer, of course. But they breathe new life into these classic games and may just not be that playable with all the conveniences of modern life.
Speaking of breathing new life, Fuchsia's about to have to breathe new life into his party again.
Yeah, his party's got that classic sort of, you know, Hydra syndrome where if you've got a promoted knight and a red mage, and in the case of Sforzand0's party, also that white wizard, that's a lot of different lives you've got. So if any one of those people survive your party, you can rebuild it. You survive a battle, you can rebuild the whole thing. So it's a hard party to kill, which gives you that, it gives you the confidence to head into Topher lower level, right? Because you can, as long as you can squeak through the battle, you can rebuild. But we know that the battles just keep getting harder. So we'll see if this works.
Yeah. I was just going to add, someone in chat asking about the cracks removed from the pool. And I believe y'all removed, what, 3 out of 4 cracks from from the attack pool for normal enemies?
Right, that's a good question. So while Fuchsia takes on Tiamat on the left, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here about how the skill pool works. So it's not random, it's a shuffling. And so we took all of the instances of those spells, and they occur sometimes more than once. Like some enemies will have scripts where they'll be like, I'm going to cast Ice 2, and then I'm going to cast Fire 2, and then I'm going to cast Fast. And so what we would do is take an Ice 2, a Fire 2, and a Fast, and throw them into this big bag of tricks. And then we shuffle that up, and we deal out all those instances, all the Ice 2s, all the Fire 2s, all the Fast, all the nukes, all the this, all the that. And then we deal them back out to all the scripts, and then we randomly reassign the scripts to all the enemies, and that's how you get script shuffle, spell shuffle, and so on. Now, there were simply too many cracks and toxics, so 2 of each, I believe, were removed. If you can imagine this game with 2 more enemies, 2 more scripts having crack and 2 more scripts having toxic, that's what this game could have been. The reason that the vanilla game is not so bad is because an enemy will have a script where it's like toxic, toxic, toxic or something, and then it loops. So what difference does it make if it has 1 toxic and loops or 3 toxics and then it loops? It makes no difference. But in, you know, the randomizer, it can be hugely different if 3 different enemies have toxic in their script. So that's why they were removed.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Kraken 2 giving Sforzand0 the business, and that defense sword finally coming into play. Tiamat 2 being a lot less willing to get held this time. Not as much of a cuddler. But Fuchsia is through Tiamat 2 and is on their way back to Chaos.
And Sforzand0 just gets past Kraken after enduring a thunder. His aptly named knight called Don't rebuilds the party, and he'll move on to Tiamat 2 himself. Yeah, so again, one fiend battle behind. Sorry.
Yeah, Sforzand0 at least being able to save a little bit on those heal potions by taking advantage of that life 2 on the white mage. However, he's also had a lot worse encounter luck, so his heal potion pool is looking pretty thin. So we are back to Chaos, everyone.
So Fuchsia just wearing out the spellbook pages for the spell Hold. I can't believe he's gotten as much mileage out of it as he has. Here we go with walls. We know Chaos likes to start with Fire 3, and then the question is, what exactly percentage of the time is Chaos going to attack, and is he going to cast Fast on himself to turn himself into an absolute killing machine? And the answer is, yeah, probably. So let's see how this shakes out.
It's one of those, yeah, there's that Fast. It's one of those things I almost think these runners have to be pulling for the spell selection here, because Chaos's spells do not seem to be too bad, but we know he's got Thunder, and there's no telling what else is in there with the skills.
Yeah, and we know he does like to attack, so once casting Fast on himself, like, you can forget about things like Invis 2 and Ruse. You would have to layer a lot of them on, but with the attack power and with the Fast, it's probably not going to work, in my estimation. And indeed, Fuchsia's embracing the throw everything at him and just hope you survive long enough to kill him. But That might only be a couple more turns.
His red mage manages to take one punch from Chaos and is still up. And he is at this point just power bonking his knight until his knight is all that's left standing.
Oh, Chaos missed actually. Oh, 454. That's some serious damage. Oh, dodges the Bane. 600. He's got a shot here.
Yeah. Fuchsia may be able to take out this Chaos with another couple of swings.
Chaos keeps missing. That's good news. So those ruses did it, and there,
and that's it.
Pulls it off. So Chaos had the hurt, but he did not have the accuracy to overcome those extra charges of ruse, and Fuchsia takes this one. We'll wait for the numbers to come in, but it looks like an official SRL time around minute 37.
Yeah, and Sforzand0 taking a pause there, presumably to GG Fuchsia on the hard-fought win. And Sforzand0 is going to squeeze through Tiamat 2 in much better shape than Fuchsia did, although we know that it's not going to really matter on this Chaos.
Him not yet having faced Chaos, he may not shuffle his party, he may try to do things like cast Invis 2 on everybody, and this seems like a Chaos that your typical strats are not going to help you on your first go, because you're just going to waste time trying to protect yourself from things that aren't going to happen. So that's a bit of a prediction on my part, but we'll see. Oh, the knight's gone to the back, and we'll see how lucky he gets with who Chaos attacks, which is going to be a big difference maker here. An amazing race. Took several cracks at Temple of Fiends are visited from both runners, and we'll try to get them in for a little post-game chit-chat here in just a moment.
So in the meantime, though, shout-outs to Terralyn for making the winning hack this time around. And yeah, so Sforzand0 immediately going on the defensive. He's seen enough of this Temple of Fiends. He's not going to let Chaos do whatever Chaos feels like doing. Yeah, so far his party has managed to stay. Really, Chaos? You had ink? Really?
8 hits, 455. The knight's with the Masamune here doing what he needs to do. Just 100 damage there. So Chaos not attacking very much yet. So Sforzand0 still not seeing the true Chaos.
Well, he's already gotten a couple of layers of evade on that knight. I think I saw at least 2 defense sword uses. So he may be at a point where he can just kind of swing to win against this Chaos. But there's that fast cast.
That'll always make you nervous. Of all the enemies in this entire game that can have fast, Chaos is the worst one.
Yeah, he may want to power bonk a few more times, though, just because he is still not getting those critical hits that Fuchsia was.
Yeah, there it is. Another Invis 2 is actually really going to help him here. He's getting pretty lucky with Chaos's script, though. He's using a lot more spells and skills than he did against Fuchsia each time.
You realize that because you said that, he's about to, like, throw out nuclear, right?
I do realize that. Oh.
Or Cure 4! Okay, he had Cure 4.
Thank heavens that didn't come up on Fuchsia's screen, or we might have been here all night.
I think Fuchsia probably still would have been able to, like, fight through that Cure 4, but that was 1,000 HP hit from Sforzand0's knight.
And 1,200.
And then 1,200 to follow it up.
Yeah, forget about that
and
Cure 4.
And this should finish off Chaos.
Geez. A strong finish from Sforzand0 says, Cure 4, what? And, like, lays down the hurt with 3 Master Strokes from the Masamune. He'll finish around 141, and that'll do it for second place. So final time for Fuchsiafantasy was 137.14, and that will move him up to 3-0, and a share, of course, of first place so far through 3 rounds of the Swiss tournament. You can't do better than 3-0, and we'll see, in next week's reveal who his match will be in round 3. That'll be pretty great match coming up. And for Sforzand0, he'll slip to 2-1, which is still near the top of the pack and definitely in qualifying contention. All of the perfect runs and people with just 1 loss should qualify out of hand. And people that finish the Swiss round with 2 losses will largely be entered into a giant playoff race. So Sforzand is still well positioned at 2-1 to emerge unscathed from the Swiss rounds.
Although the 2-1 group has some nastiness to it now. I believe we have Tristal hanging out in the 2-1 bracket. We have Wilcliosis in the 2-1 bracket. I believe Demarine is also hanging out up in the 2-1 bracket. So 2-1 is 2-1 may be more dangerous than 3-0 at this point, just in terms of the kinds of how
that's bold. Yeah. I'd rather play the people that have lost. Well, they're hungrier. See, Fuchsia can be a little comfortable now. He's got a bit of a cushion, and we're obviously joking around. The top echelon of this tournament, whether you're 3-0 or 2-1, is just stacked with great players who can take the match from anyone. So I don't envy anyone challenging for the top part here, but nothing but great races to come.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things you can't be comfortable in the 2-1 bracket at this point, because Sforzand is also down there too now.
Not to mention, you're that much closer to slipping out of the bracket stage, right? You really want to get out of the Swiss and into the playdowns. That's where the real magic happens, and all the excitement is even yet to be had. So I hugely look forward to that, and just 1 week at a time as this tournament builds steam. There ain't no getting off of this train we on. So I haven't heard much from Fuchsia or Sforzand0. I'm not sure if either of them.
They may both
not have the energy.
With that Temple of Fiends revisited, I don't blame either one of them for getting up, getting something to drink, maybe taking a moment to splash some water on their faces, stretch their legs. I can't imagine either one of them was nice and relaxed at the end of when that done came through from Fuchsia.
I mean, if I couldn't be relaxed, how could they? Just look at the step counters, though. So one more trip through Topher for Fuchsia, and that many more steps. But otherwise, the routing was ridiculously close. A lot
44 power offs on Sforzando's side.
Yeah.
He found something he liked at the beginning of that. Whatchamacallit.
Yeah, the hero run at the start to take advantage of some saves coming across the world map. He obviously did that a whole bunch of times, and then if that combines with some other resets out of places, then you're going to rack up a big number.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that difference in chests opened is Fuchsia's Mermaid Dip.
Yeah, it's so close.
Yeah, these two runners ran an incredibly close game, and their stats here show that. I agree.
So once again, on the left we had Fuchsiafantasy, tonight's winner at 137.14. On the right, Sforzand0, second place tonight, 140.57. Fuchsia will move up to 3-0. Sforzand0 will slip down to 2-1. And please give them a follow if you're interested in watching more of their content. They both play Final Fantasy Randomizer a lot. They were league entrants that finished near the top of the pack over the 8 stages of the league. And if you like Final Fantasy Randomizer, you would do well to follow both of them. As well, our restreamer tonight, Maximum Barnage, my co-commentator, Wote. I am Nitz __. I occasionally stream debugging and adding new features, but I don't race this game competitively, not at this level.
Yeah, a correction to what I said before. I thought Tristal had already run his third round match, but he still has that coming up with Green Cleric. So Tristal, not yet a group of 2-0 death competitor yet.
No, Fuchsia, we absolutely have time. Can you join us in the chat for a bit here? We'd love to have a chat.
Yeah, no, we were just stalling for time. We figured you and Sforzand0 were going to need a minute before you could join us. And we wouldn't have blamed you. So, yeah, if you want to jump into the commentary room, just go ahead and get in here.
Or if you head to the waiting room, of course, we can pull you in as well.
Yeah, I would assume you're one of the folks who can just add yourself. Well, Sforzand0 definitely can. GG, Sforzand0.
Man, I just hate losing to bad luck.
There was a lot of bad luck to be had this week. Fuchsia made it through Temple of Fiends on his third try, so he wiped once to Kraken, once to Chaos, and then finally took Chaos down on his third run through.
GG to Fuchsia, who is now in here with us. So, gentlemen, I guess we'll wait for. I'll wait a second for Fuchsia to speak up. Fuchsia, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear the stream in someone's background. So
yeah, I had to fix some stuff.
Alrighty, Fuchsia, GG on tonight's win. Your official time was 1:37:14. Walk us through the 3 trips through Temple of Fiends for you, and what adjustments you maybe tried to make each time through, or if you had a different plan in mind.
Well, before he does that, I just need to make this clear. Gentlemen, both of you can breathe. You are allowed to breathe now. It's over.
Take a deep breath, then take us through that Temple of Fiends revisited, because I know that obviously each time you got a little farther, and I was just wondering, how you made that happen.
Well, first time I wiped the Kraken one, so I retooled my strategy. I'm gonna damage rush Kraken 2, and that finally worked. And I got really lucky to land a hold on Tiamat 2 both times I fought her. So that really helped in those fights. Second time through, I got to Chaos, and I forgot to put defense up the first round. I decided Power Bonk. And then Chaos hits my Knight for about, 300 damage. So I think, oh crap, Nuclear might roll off, so I gotta get the damaging now. I don't know why I thought that, but it was a fatal error, and that basically destroyed my second run. Otherwise, I would have won a lot earlier than I did.
And Sforzand0, you managed to get through it on your second try. You overcame a really nasty Chaos with with Cure 4 even. I don't even think Fuchsia noticed that, but we had a hard-hitting Chaos that had Fast and Cure 4. And you were able to get by that on your second time through. So can you talk a bit about the adjustments you made and how you got through there?
I was fairly satisfied with the encounter table. So when I took the wipe at Tiamat 2, which was strictly because of a rub through wall, which I am just not happy about. Otherwise, I suffered through the nuclear and everything was fine with that fight. But I felt like I knew exactly what I was going to see. I was going to see the same things. I kind of lucked out on the nuke roll the second time through Kraken. He didn't devastate me as much as I thought he would. And then Tiamat 2 went exactly how it went, but I beat him before he got the rub off. And then when I saw the Cure 4 and Chaos, I was like, well, heck, I'll buy a couple turns power bonking. And then it was a 3-hit kill.
Yeah, we earmarked a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. One of them was about waiting so long to go to Melman. Were you just kind of hoping to route in the slab? Because I know that you went to Ice Cave and to Waterfall before checking to see if Warp was there or anything like that. Was that intentional?
It was intentional to do it before Ice, just because, like you said, yeah, if I find the slab, I can kind of get that routed in. Plus, Ice Cave, it got me some levels and whatnot, and I went there, I think, before Carry. Before Volcano, and so I was kind of happy with the levels that I got from there, so I was going to be all right without it. And then I did actually mean to get over there before going to Waterfall Cave. I think I just forgot. Because it was like, okay, then I went Volcano, and then from there it was like, okay, what's next? And unfortunately, I forgot to go back and get it.
All right, that clears up that mystery, because I was like, he is walking all the way out of here. So he must have forgot, but I wasn't sure if you were really bent on getting the slab first or not. But that answers that. Because
unfortunately, then Waterfall Cave was not very good to me.
No, it was long and brutal, and you had to walk it all the way out too. So that cost you a bit of time compared to Fuchsia, but there were other decisions. So the big difference from our perspective, watching from the sidelines, is that Fuchsia made a dive to the mermaids, which was reasonable. There was a black shirt in there and a katana because he had a ninja, I think. But you cleared out Ice and found Massimo, and that was the real treasure to have between the two of you. So you had a bit of a gear advantage, but that extra time not having Warp gave him the first kind of crack at the Temple of Fiends.
Yeah. Speaking, though, of dungeons and kind of rolling around a little bit, you both made the decision to dive Earth before heading to the air dungeon. And Was there any particular reason for that routing? I know a lot of runners tend to favor, kind of doing Earth last and digging Mirage and Sky Castle first. So, either of you have any kind of want to discuss your reasoning on that?
Well, for me, it was I just didn't get the slab until pretty late, so I figured I'd turn in the slab and do Earth in the same go. And it really doesn't matter what order you do the theme dungeons in. What matters is what chests you're willing to check. I did some digging in Earth, but I usually don't do a whole lot, and it doesn't add too much time to do the digs that I did. It turned up empty, but yeah, I got
that. That was pretty much everything I wanted to say, because that was pretty much my reasoning. It was a sort of a regional bias while I was in the area.
Yeah, you guys did really well to take care of all the stuff that you had to do. Like at the beginning, it was like, here's the floater, here's the canoe. And obviously then you both immediately put 2 and 2 together. You get down there, you get the airship, you head over to Sarda, you get the crown, then you've got the key quest. Then all of a sudden the rest of the game is like, just do all of these things as fast as you can. And I love seeing people's various approaches to that, because while you're doing that, you got to get some levels, you got to find some gear, you got to hope you find some ribbons. Of course, you both found the ribbon in the first floor of Mirage, and that was all you guys seemed to need. You took it and ran from there. And were it not for some just complete craziness in Temple of Fiends Revisited, it's hard to say if this could have gone differently. Obviously, Sforzand0, you got wrecked with that nasty rub through the ribbon, or through the wall, pardon me. Fuchsia ran into a freight train on Kraken 2 the first time. Otherwise, could have, at that point, he had about half a dungeon lead. So it made for an amazing finish. And GG to both of you for just putting on the show you put on, and the level that you played and the speed that you were able to accomplish everything was a sight to see. So it was just a crazy wild finish that really gave us the real show we were in for, because the rest of this was so methodical for both of you that's where it got exciting, was right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have done anything different, was there any mistakes that either of you would have observed and gone back and told yourself before, or are you pretty satisfied with your routing? Maybe Sforzand0, do you want to go first?
Yeah, short of missing Wall and Melmond, because that would have saved me easily 5 or 6 minutes, if not more, because I took a wipe because there were 5 whiz mummies on my trap tile in Waterfall, and so Glare immediately took out 2 of my mages, and then it was able to cycle around again, and their second slot was Stone Poison, which got the other 2, and so that was just an unfortunate run through the Waterfall Cave that I wished that I could have had Warp for, at least save myself time on the trip out. It wouldn't have saved me the time in, but I could have saved a couple minutes getting out. Maybe not 5 minutes.
And that's an interesting point, and it's hard to say. If you had gotten Warp before going to Ice, would you have done what Fuchsia did and Warp out of it instead of finding the Masamune? So, it's those what-ifs that kind of create this entire narrative. Fuchsia, anything you would have done differently, or are you really happy with how it went up to the Temple of Fiends?
Up to the Temple of Fiends, I think I played pretty good. I probably wouldn't have done Mermaids because that really wasn't the best decision. But I mean, I did Sea Shine first, and I kind of needed experience levels. And going up to Mermaids and taking all those fights, because the front of the encounter table was kind of chunky after the first encounter, it did get me the XP levels I needed for the rest of the game. As for Warp, I do everything in my power not to have. I do everything in my power to have Warp before I do enough Warp charges before I do Ice. So I did Ice quite late. I made sure I had those 4 Warp charges to get out of there as soon as possible. Of course, I missed out on Massa, but I had a Power Glove, and I had Adamant that I found in the Ice Cave, so that was good.
Alrighty. Well,
may I just ask one more question before we kind of sign out?
Okay.
All right. So, one thing that is different for this tournament from last tournament is the addition of the encounter shuffle, or encounter frequency shuffle. So, I guess I'm just curious. once you guys both saw the unrunnables that were kind of in your path through Temple of Fiends Revisited, was there any thought given to maybe trying to dig around and finding a different part of the encounter frequency table that maybe would give you a little less having to sit there and fight all of these battles?
I don't know about, obviously I can't speak for Fuchsia, I'll let him speak in a second, but for me, it was a matter of, I kind of liked what I saw. It was front-loaded with the 4 zombie dragon encounters, and then there was one more unrunnable in the Red Giant Agama fight, and then one more in the Gersh Shark Wiz-Sahag fight. Otherwise, the rest of the encounter table was fairly nice, and I think it was a matter of whether or not I was hedging my bets in taking front-end encounters for less back-end encounters.
And Fuchsia, any thoughts on that? I'm just going to ask you to, we're going to wrap it up real soon, so if you could fold your final thoughts into that answer, that'd be great too.
As far as that, I actually tried to do a manipulation. I thought I was being clever, so what I did is I power cycled into Mirage and Sky Castle, did that, and I thought the later part of the encounter table was a bit nicer, I thought anyway. So I went into Temple of Fiends a bit into the encounter table, and I thought, oh gee, I'll get a power run around fire and C4. And I did get a good walk in the C4, but those stinking mud golems, and I had to wade through them with melee attacks. It was so annoying.
Yeah, I didn't have a single mud goal in the earth floor at all, so it was actually pretty nice.
Well, Fuchsia, congratulations on the win one more time. Any final thoughts?
No, GG is Sforzand0, and I'm looking forward to my next match.
Yep, GG.
And Sforzand0, on your side, any final thoughts?
I'm going to be bitter about this one for a while, but I really did get outplayed, so bad luck just made up for, any hope I would have had. So
don't be too hard on yourself. It was anybody's game right up to the end. And, RNG cuts both ways. This time you got rubbed through the wall. Next time that happens to whoever you're playing against. So chin up, and at 2-1, Sforzand0 will be in the hunt of people that are still well within their rights to qualify for the bracket stage. But the real winner tonight is Fuchsiafantasy. Rarefied air of 3-0 and continues to stay at the front of the pack with the best shot of advancing into the bracket stage. This has been a Stage 3 race of the Final Fantasy Randomizer Spring Tournament on Randomania. I am Nits__ with Wout tonight. Our tracker was Melee Wizard, restreamed by Maximum Barnage on the Randomania channel on Twitch. And so long, good night. We'll see you all next time.
Yeah, just to kind of close things out a little bit, if you enjoyed what you saw, we do have an exhibition match that is going to be firing up over on one of the speed gamings here in a few minutes. And I'm sure someone will be able to tell us what.
Looks like it's happening on Speed Gaming 2, as a matter of fact, our other partner for this Final Fantasy Spring Tournament. So thank you, Randomania. While I plug the competition, we really appreciate your airtime.
Yeah, but to plug Randomania in turn, if you're enjoying this randomized action, feel free to hop on here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern for another installment of the Super Mario Land 2 Randomizer League. Or if you want to see some Final Fantasy Randomizer here on Randomania, and Shalasia are going to be going head-to-head at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. And that will do it for us here for now. Feel free to swing by our Discord in the Final Fantasy Randomizer community if you like what you saw and want to come hang out with us. And otherwise, have a good evening, y'all.
Good night.